From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN Noon News.
Good afternoon, I'm Augusta McDonnell, and McIntosh has our forecast in just a minute. But first, let's get right to our top story. We now know the name of the man who fell off a chairlift at Red Lodge Mountain, and we know that he died. The news inspired an outpouring of support for 37-year-old Jeff Zinni, who was a business owner, a husband, and the father to a young boy. He passed away Wednesday morning at St. Vincent Hospital. Coroners say this was due to blunt force trauma. We're told the injury happened after gusty winds rocked the chairlift he was riding on Monday up at Red Lodge Mountain. Jeff's father-in-law and mother-in-law say he was a loving friend, father, and husband who will be deeply missed. They said even after death, he was still giving back to his community as he donated both his kidney and heart. Jeff leaves behind his wife Megan and also a 2-year-old son Ronan, who also, we're told, referred to his father as Dada Guy. The Carbon County Sheriff's Office is investigating Zinni's death. One question being asked after this tragedy is why the chairlift and so many others in Montana don't have restraining bars. MTN's Charlie Klepps has more on that.
When most of us get into our car, it's the first thing we do without even thinking. But a ride on a chairlift is a much different experience. There aren't any seatbelts or even any safety bars most of the time, even though we're hundreds of feet off of the ground. Monday's chairlift accident at Red Lodge Mountain is now receiving national attention.
I heard about it pretty quickly after it happened.
From ski bloggers to attorneys.
It's certainly something that we really work to prevent.
Jeff Zinni's death after falling off of the triple chair in Red Lodge has many asking why.
Whatever happened with the lift then necessitated the rope evacuation.
Wyoming ski blogger Peter Landsman pays attention to ski lift news across the country. He says Monday's tragic incident is extremely rare.
The last time someone died in the United States due to a lift malfunction was in 2016.
Details are still sparse regarding the incident. We know that after Zinni fell, the other 135 passengers on the lift were evacuated by rope.
Yeah, we're gonna start lowering ya. Okay, go ahead.
Red Lodge Mountain attributes the incident to erratic winds. Landsman says what is uncertain is if the lift had issues as well.
What complicates this situation is it was very windy and there may have also been a lift malfunction involved.
Monday's tragedy is also raising big questions about lift security.
Each resort self-regulates itself.
Billings attorney Tanis Holm represented clients injured in another lift accident at Red Lodge Mountain in 2020 and learned there is no single entity that regulates ski resorts in Montana.
There isn't a whole lot of guidance and oversight.
But that hasn't always been the case. In 1997, Montana disbanded the state's Board of Passenger Tramway Safety Act.
It's kind of a board that oversees ski resort operations.
Other states have more regulation. Landsman points to Vermont as an example.
And every chair on every chairlift is required to have a safety bar.
Landsman says in our region, safety bars are less common, as lifts in most states were constructed decades ago and replacing lifts is expensive.
A mountain like Red Lodge couldn't just replace all their lifts.
The Landsman says this accident could certainly accelerate that process before this tragedy becomes the norm.
I think that more regulation in the ski industry could really help to prevent these horrific incidences.
In Billings, Charlie Klepps, MTN News.
We have a full moon tonight, but also a chance to see a lunar eclipse, at least in portions of the region, as we'll see the sun, the earth, and the moon come into alignment. The shadow of the earth casts across the moon and gives it that great crimson color. Now, here's some approximate times for us because they're going to vary a little bit across the state as broad as Montana is. But basic rule of thumb is if you look anywhere from just after midnight until about 1:15 a.m. in the morning, you should have a great shot of seeing this. The problem is we've already got clouds and storms moving across western and central Montana, and that's going to continue to move into the eastern plains, so visibility could be limited. We'll talk about that with the forecast coming up.
The United States is urging Moscow to say yes to a 30-day ceasefire proposal that would help chart a path toward peace. The U.S. hammered out that deal on Wednesday with Ukraine. More U.S. weapons are also on the way to Ukraine after the Trump administration lifted its suspension of military aid for Kyiv. This agreement comes after President Trump called Ukraine's elected president a dictator just last month before publicly berating him at the White House. The president's special envoy is expected to head to Russia for talks later this week. Montana Senator Steve Daines visited Ukraine in 2022 and witnessed the devastation. Today, MTN's Andrea Lutz checks back in with the senator to see if his opinion of that war has changed since President Trump took office.
Putin is a thug. He is an evil dictator.
Senator Steve Daines echoing the same message 3 years after Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
I say that without stuttering. And the issue now going forward is, how do we end this war?
A question on everyone's mind.
The sight and the smell was horrible.
Daines was one of the few U.S. lawmakers to witness the devastation in Ukraine firsthand, traveling to Eastern Europe in 2022.
I went and saw the atrocities the Russians had committed against innocent Ukrainians in Bucha.
Daines stood on Ukrainian soil, just feet away from a mass civilian grave.
When the Russians were retreating from Ukraine at that moment, they came in from the north. And if you remember, everybody thought Ukraine was going to fall in 3 days. And the Ukrainians put up a tremendous fight, and the Russians actually retreated from that initial advance from the north. But in doing so, as they retreated, they were drunk, they were angry, and they massacred innocent men, women, and children. That's what I witnessed and saw, and it was horrible.
But fast forward to today, with President Donald Trump placing blame on Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky for the ongoing war.
You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
After an explosive Oval Office meeting,
that was not a man that wanted to make peace.
Trump criticized Zelensky's approach to peace talks, a criticism shared by Senator Daines.
All he had to do was walk in the Oval Office, thank the president for the support, thank the United States for the billions of dollars been sent to Ukraine, and to sign the deal. He had to go in and just, I would say, make a free throw. And what he did is he airballed.
Now Trump is calling Zelensky the dictator. But Daines isn't wavering, doubling down, saying Putin is the real dictator, while still backing President Trump as the leader who can bring the war to an end.
Again, Putin's a thug. Putin's a dictator. But it's going to take a diplomatic type relationship to get Putin and Zelensky to the table to sign the deal. Now, that's the art of diplomacy. That's the art of the deal that President Trump is very skilled at doing.
In Billings, Andrea Lutz, MTN News.